Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing, testing. Yeah.
Green is
they
good.
can't hear you. And if you click it and it goes to green, they can hear you.
Well, come up here so they can hear you.
Oh, got it.
Hit your button again. Unless you don't want to be heard.
We're ready to go.
All right. We'll go ahead and call our regular meeting of the Wayne County Board of Education to order. It's 6 o'clock. And if you'll stand, we'll say the pledge.
Okay.
Kathy, you want to lead us this evening?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the record show that all board members are present in person except for Mr. Troutwine,
We gotta get,
who will join us by phone. And our first order of business is legal updates.
We're going to receive updates on matters pending with the Board of Risk and Insurance Management. Mr. Farrell, our attorney, is here for that update, but we will need an executive session for that.
All
is
right,
Randy on the phone?
we'll pick him up when
We're
we
gonna
go
pick
in.
him
Oh,
up.
we'll go in there. Okay.
So I just need a motion for executive session.
Motion to go into executive session.
Motion by Johnita. Do I
You
have
want
a
me to second
second?
I will.
Second. Second by Dennis. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0, and it is 6:02.
Okay.
And for the folks online, we will, we'll pick back up on the stream when we come back out of the executive session. There's a possibility the computer's going to update, but just hang in there. We'll get it started again once we come out of executive session.
Recognitions. I need a motion to return. Motion. Second.
Looks like it's still on. I'm surprised.
They do, mostly real estate. Well, they do that prepaid. Right. And it's nice to
You're
have somebody like that.
not muted.
Oh, I just hit it.
Right there, Mark.
Go back up there and cut it.
You may want to make a speech or something. You're ready.
I'm not saying anything.
Take care.
He's talking. All right. I need a motion to return from executive session.
Motion. You have it, Mark?
Mark,
Mark. I second him.
okay. Mark had the motion. Johnita had the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
And we're 5-0 now as
5-0.
Randy's joined us by phone.
Perfect. 6:27 is our return time.
Yes.
All right. The next order of business are recognitions, if we have any this evening.
None this evening. No employee recognitions this evening.
Okay.
No presentations.
James here. You recognize again.
No
Good
presentations.
news.
Good news, anyone?
Anybody? My granddaughter's 10 years old today. That's good
Well,
news.
happy birthday.
Annabelle.
No other good news? All right, moving on to informational items. Special meeting on Tuesday, January 21st, beginning at 4 at Fort Gay Pre-K 8 in the library. And then we'll adjourn and move to Pritchard Elementary at 5:15 for their LSIC meeting.
Yep.
A regular meeting on Tuesday, January 28th at 6 here in the board conference room. And we can go to construction project update.
Yeah, so the construction projects have been held up a little bit because of the weather. And the last update that I gave you, we were laying block down at Wayne Elementary, and they were hoping to have it under roof by this point of January. But the block lane was delayed with the snowfall and the ice and everything. So they're getting close to where they're going to be able to put the steel up to get it under roof, but we're still not under roof there. So slightly delayed there. And then in your packet, if you'll look on page 31, we had talked at a previous meeting about the maintenance on some of the HVAC that we put in the schools,
Yep.
specifically the air sys units at Wayne Middle, Wayne High, Tulsa High School. The units at those places. Mason and Barry is who's contracted for the first 2 years to do those maintenance checks and to do quarterly cleaning. And so on page 31 is the form that they will be using and signing off on that we'll be collecting as they complete their quarterly maintenance on the units. Their first round of maintenance is scheduled here for the last 2 weeks of January. And so I just wanted to share that information with you. And that runs from pages 31 to 33.
It's always good to document it.
One question. Is
Sure.
there okay, never mind. It's on the last page. The tech that does the service, I just wondered, make sure that it was signed by.
We have one of our individuals like accompanying them so that I'm not saying that they wouldn't do what's on here, but just to verify that what's on here actually has been
Have the
done.
clerk of the works.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll have to check,
Yeah.
once they submit these, we'll spot check some of them.
Okay, either that or maybe our guy goes with them.
Yeah, I
To
think they're
all of
going to
them?
come in. I think there's going to be multiple people involved, so
okay.
we might
Not
not be able
just
to go
one.
with each
I
of them,
gotcha.
but we will spot check them to make sure it's being completed.
Okay. How long does it take to do these? I mean, is it like a,
They
a
were
one-day
looking at
thing?
about a 2-week span to do all the schools.
okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, and they're scheduled to start next week. But Mark had asked me about the maintenance schedule for him, so we've been following up to see when that's going to begin and was able to collect this information.
And all these will be kept on file by you or the maintenance department.
Maintenance department, yes.
And we would have access if we wanted to come in and take a look.
Absolutely. That's all I have for updates.
That's short.
Okay.
Stuff back in here. No delegations this evening, right?
No delegations.
None. Moving on to superintendent reports.
Okay, first up, 2025 final computations compared to 2026 preliminary state aid computations.
Okay.
So we're going to be looking, beginning on page 2.
Yep.
The document on page 2 was created by Jeb. And it has 4 columns in it, other than the titles of the different funds. The first column that you see there is your final computations for 24-25. That was the amount of money that we received last fiscal year to operate in each of the different areas listed on the page. Our preliminary computations for 25 and 26. And again, those are not they're preliminary, they're not final,
Right.
but it's estimated how much we're going to receive again to operate in each of the areas. So Jeb has tracked the budget impact that we're expecting as we move into the year. And then he has listed the change in dollar amounts in your third column to the right. Of course, as you all know, if those are in parentheses, it indicates that that money has been lost in that particular category.
Right.
If it's not in parentheses, then it indicates that we will actually be receiving more money in that particular category. So Jeb, I'll turn it over to you if there's anything in particular you want to point out there.
If you look down the sheet there, first step 1, net allowance for professionals went down. We expected that to go down. We had loss of 167 students this year. Step 2, the allowance for service personnel, we see an increase of 286,746. Well, that's an increase. That increase is due to
8,
ECATs.
what I thought.
third grade coming in. And again, that doesn't cover all the aids. That is just a estimate
What
that
yeah.
they've given us. Allowance for fixed charges went down. It follows the salaries. Allowance for transportation.
Wow.
It took a big hit.
Sure did.
Down 328,000.
Why did it go down that much?
Right.
Yeah.
It's impacted by the loss of student enrollment as well. And we're gonna get into the transportation budget next after we get through these numbers.
Okay, have the same allowance you have to cover and everything.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Bus replacement, it went down as well. Went down 43,000.
No, it went up.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Went up
I'm sorry.
43,000.
I'm sorry, did you say it went up 3?
Went up 43,000.
Yep.
Allowance for other current expense took a hit. It's down as well. It's down around 112,000.
And that we skipped over that allowance for student support personnel. That's your counseling, social work positions. It's down 47,000. And again, I want to emphasize these are the preliminary computations. So they always change when we get the final computations, but it's gives you a good understanding of what direction it's headed.
Substitute cost, it's going up around 29,000. Faculty senate, it's tied directly to the number of teachers.
Yeah.
It's going down 12.6. Step 7A, improved construction. And these numbers, these typically are the numbers that get adjusted. They'll vary between now and the final computation. It's down around 4. 21st century is down 3.5. Advanced placements up a little. And then teacher leader reduction, it's up 26,000. Overall, the total basic foundation is down $447,000. If you throw in the local share, total basic state aid is currently right now is down $382,603. The unrestricted state aid is down $396,156. The rest of the stuff underneath that, PEI allocation, determined allocation. We've not got firm numbers on those yet. But currently, what we need to keep an eye on right now is the unrestricted state aid. That's the number I keep an eye on.
So down at the bottom, the total state revenue and total state revenue is projected to be down about $344,000. And as Jeb said, the unrestricted state aid is dropping around $396,000. That's to be expected with a triple-digit student loss.
These will change a little bit in the next couple of months, but these are, unless there's some major, something happens in the house.
Close.
Now, if you go over to page 3, and again, these are the preliminary numbers, but you're going to see the different steps in the state funding formula broken out. And again, Jeb summarized those numbers on that page that we just went over, so I'm not going to go through each of these individually. But not only do you have Wayne on here, but you have all the other counties listed as well. And so it goes through step 1, page 4 is step 2. That's the total, that's the allowance for service personnel.
Yep.
Step 3 is the benefits. That's on page 5. Fixed charges for employees. Step 4 is transportation, which we're going to take a closer look at here in a minute. There's also a category there, the allowance for bus replacement, which we talked about. It's increasing for next year. And then the total allowance for transportation is found on that page. Page 6, step 5, that's your student support personnel. We saw the summary numbers there. That's dropping $40-some thousand next year. Step 7, or I'm sorry, page 7 is step 6. That includes allowance for substitutes, faculty senates. Page 8 is step 7. That's your instructional programs and your technology.
Yeah.
And that includes the teacher and leader induction, which we've tried to do a lot with over the last few years. It's good there that budget continues to increase. And then on page 9 is your step 8, step 9, and step 10. Step 8 being the total basic program allowance. Step 9 is your local share. So they use the funding formula, and Jeb, you correct me if I get off on this. They use the funding formula to decide how much it takes to operate the school system. They give you that total number. So for example, the step 8, the total basic program allowance for Wayne is $47.8 million. And then what they do is they subtract the local share. That's your local tax collections that support the public education program. And then that leaves them on the far right when you get over to step 10. That leaves with the amount of money that they intend to send to the district through the state aid formula. And you can see at this point in time, that number is $40 million. So the more money you collect,
The less they have to send you.
the more money you collect locally, the less they send. The less you collect, the more they send. That's how they equalize services among the counties. So for example, if you go up to Doddridge, you can remember there for several years when gas was booming, that Doddridge was receiving $0 from the state. You can see that's changed slightly.
Yeah.
They're set to operate off 11.3 million. They're collecting 9.6 million in local share, so they're receiving from the state government 1.6 million to operate the school system. Again, I think Doddridge is a system that has like 3 schools total. So you see the different numbers there. Okay, that moves us into our next topic, which is the budget discussion for transportation.
Okay.
And so on page 10, you're going to see some familiar language here.
Okay.
Bill, do you have that document that we're looking at?
Yeah.
Okay. Or you and Kay look at it there. So on page 10, and again, this is just stolen from the page that we were looking at there a little bit ago. You'll see that Wayne, the allowance for transportation is listed at 1.897, 1.8 million. And then over in B, they're listed us as receiving $781,000 for bus replacement. And so step 4, the total received there was 2.6 million. So in looking at that, that 1.897 million, if you go back to page 2, Jed's summary document, and you look at step 4, you'll see that that number is there. That was part of the final computation. So this year, that number is going to drop 328,000, and the bus garage will be operating with approximately 1.5 million instead of that 1.897. But this is how the budget is set and how the transportation department operates with that budget. If you go on to page 11, Jeb, Bill, and I met yesterday and pulled these documents. If you go over to page 11, you're going to see some specific items that are the bigger ticket items that Jeb broke out separately for you to see.
Okay.
Now, page 11, this is a year-to-date document. So this is how much money that has been spent. And over in the far right column, that's how much money we've spent this year in those particular line items. But if you go to the left, you'll see the different years. And again, for all those different years, as of December 31st, that was the amount that was spent.
Okay.
So for example, if we drop down to the fuel diesel line, in 2020, there was $175,000 that was spent as of December 31st. Now look at that 2021 expense.
COVID.
Yeah,
Right.
that was the year. That was the year that schools were shut down so much.
Yeah.
Between COVID and the ice storm.
Mhm.
And 2021, the expense at this point of the year was only at 40,000.
Yeah.
And of course, diesel prices greatly impact
Right.
this number and where it is. You can see the high point was in 23, was at 310,000. This year, as we sit here, we're at 239,000, which is lower than the last 2 years. Going down to the next line item, you can see oils and lubricants.
Mhm.
So the oils and lubricants are significantly down this year. They're only at $4,400, which I believe that's the lowest amount that's been spent going back over those 5 years.
Is that because the cost is down or because we're not doing them in-house?
Any thoughts on that, Bill? On the oil and lubricants?
I mean, it'd be pricing because we're doing the same work as we've always done.
Yeah.
Uh,
So just the cost of goods is better at this point for
cost
those.
Maybe, and Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was surprised to see that much.
Yeah, me too.
Mhm.
It was low in 2022
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just a little bit lower this year. But you know, the last 2 years were the highest numbers, up around 10,000 at this
Right.
point.
So your bulk oil is probably fast.
Right. Gotcha.
Fuel prices came down some as well.
Right.
If we drop down to the next line item, you're going to see tires and tubes.
Wow.
And again, that's going to be impacted by pricing.
Mhm.
But we're at not the highest point in the last 5 years, but the second highest. We're at $36,000 roughly. And the only time higher was 2020. It was and that was pre-pandemic. It was at 42,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Could that be partially because of the age of our fleet and the fact that we couldn't get new buses there? I mean, we were kind of stuck in using old buses and,
Well, the
Yes.
tire prices have
Right.
increased as well.
Yeah.
They've raised tire prices. Everything's going up.
Sure.
Tires,
Yeah.
parts. There are some parts that we ordered that have doubled in price from the beginning of the year that we ordered it to now.
right,
It'll double.
Wow.
And it's random. It's like we can't predict what part it's going to be or.
Right.
You know, it's just next thing you order it, it's double the price.
and you're at the mercy of the
Yeah.
vendor because,
Mhm.
you know,
And the tires are the same way.
right,
And next, you're going to see the parts.
It's really gone up.
yeah,
Yeah, which isn't surprising
right,
because of the pricing, but the 265,000 where we stand now, that's the highest amount we've seen in the last 5 years.
Are we doing more work in-house compared to what we were before we renovated the garage? Could that have,
It's allowed us to do different type of work that we couldn't do before, so yes.
okay,
But one of the biggest problems we have is the age of our fleet. And like you just said, you pointed to it a minute ago, we're having to keep old buses on the road that we're not getting funding for because we haven't been able to get these buses coming in
Right.
regularly. We've been waiting.
right,
So that's forced us to put money in buses that.
That we
could've
shouldn't.
Normally pulled off the road. But
gotcha,
that's getting ready to get better. We could be putting 8 buses on the road by late spring.
that'd be
So we got
fantastic,
5 Bluebirds coming, and we're still waiting for 3 Thomas.
Yeah.
Just give you an idea of what we're dealing with Thomas, and I don't know if it's necessarily a Matheny thing, but they got one of our buses in September 3rd. Because I looked at my text when I asked them where it was at. It was a new one.
right,
We've been waiting on since spring of 23.
Yeah.
And we just got that bus about 2 weeks ago, and it came in, and we had to send it right back because we had chains rusted on it. It just, I don't know if it's set up there. I don't know what their deal is. They're coming in with screws missing, and
Wow.
so the last few that we've gotten from them, we've had to directly send them. Either they redirected on their way to us and went straight on up to Cerrito, Canova, because they come from Parkersburg. Or they've stopped in, we looked at it and said,
Take
you
a
know,
look.
find things wrong. So it's been a real headache, but we're about ready to get out from under that mess.
Now, at the bottom of the page, you'll see the year-to-date totals for all those line items. So we're a little bit under where we were last year. Last year, we were at 661,000. This year, we're at 587,000. But if you look at the last 5 years, that 587,000 is the second highest amount. Going to the next page, page 12.
I got a question real quick on,
Sure.
what's an example on general supplies?
What is it now?
General supplies, what would be examples of general supplies, the very top one?
It could be supplies for drivers, cleaning supplies.
Uniform allotment.
Uniforms.
Yeah.
what's our
Tools.
uniform allotment now for drivers? We get
$350.
a piece, and we have how many drivers?
Well, regular, 89.
Okay.
And then the subs get, what, 2?
Don't they get half or something?
Did my safety concerns increase that or affect?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I was wondering about it because I want to make sure that all the people are safe and can be seen.
We
Right.
purchased those, but that was like a one-time purchase, so I think we have to purchase every year.
Jeb pulled some of the individual purchases on that. I think the majority of it was the uniform
Yes.
allotment.
About 24,000. roughly
Of that.
24,000,
Okay.
Yeah, half of it, a little over half for uniforms alone.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Okay, moving on to page 12. This is the same data. But you'll see I have written up at the top here, year end. So this is the total expenses for the year. So in other words, instead of like when we look at fuel and diesel for 2020, you see that number at $340,913. That was for the entire 2020 school year. We didn't cut that off in December. This report shows you how much was spent for the entire year. Now, it still has the year-to-date numbers on the far right that we've spent this year, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're on pace for.
Gotcha.
Okay.
That actually tells me that they're taking care of business, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks a little bit better in that light, especially when you look at the parts.
I will say, Richie, our shop foreman is very diligent about pushing for good prices. If something seems to be outrageous, we'll look other places. So he's really good about that. Of course, you know, he's all time reporting back to me every day. You know, where we're at, what we gotta get, you know.
Good.
As far as, you know,
You think some of the raises on the specific parts that you have no rhyme or reason, you think they're just being arbitrary and trying to gouge a little bit?
I don't know. That's a good question because, you know, there's little things that add up, you know, over time. And for instance, we had we were purchasing a cheaper brake drum for a while. That brake drum was supposed to be safe for buses or anything you put it on. It had perforated, it was perforated. And we had one burst. So we went back to the more
Solid.
expensive one
Yeah.
because of safety. So,
Right.
you know, we've had to do some of those things, and that adds up. And plus, the supply and demand is still a slight problem. We're manufacturers, and they've just raised it. And it doesn't matter if it's because most of the buses now have the same Cummins engine in them. It doesn't matter if it's Thomas or International. That engine's basically the same.
Right.
Probably transmission too.
Transmission has gone up. I mean, but anytime we have a transmission issue, we have to go to Western Branch.
Chili Cummins and Allison transmission.
Right. We have 3 gas buses coming. We already have one in the fleet. There's been a couple little things wrong with it that we've gotten fixed as far as like a manufacturing issue. Of course, it's under warranty. But we have 3 more coming. And I know we can't probably go total gas. There's probably no way of doing that anyway. But I think you're going to see that those buses are really, the driver just continues to enjoy. He actually enjoys driving.
Would it be cheaper to replace a gasoline engine?
Yes, sir. We could probably replace it. We could blow one up and probably put an engine in it for 8 or 10,000. Where if we have to replace an engine with a remanned engine, a diesel engine is going to cost $30,000.
Wow.
We're saving on oil. That's just one bus, so it's not really shown here yet. but
Right.
Oil, you know, 8 to 10, no DEF, 8 to 10 quarts of oil opposed to 25 or 30 each time.
Right.
The filters,
So that'll be good then.
things that
to note.
that correct your pollution and stuff like that.
The DEF filters are very
Is it-
expensive.
Is it cheaper on the gas?
Oh, yeah, it's a catalytic converter, and so you don't have you don't have near the emission issues that you have with the diesel engine, that gas engine that's got a catalytic converter, so it doesn't have DPF fluid, it doesn't have or DEF fluid, it doesn't have a DPF filter, which when those filters, you can see, it's not listed on here, Kay made a packet if you are interested in looking at it. And it just shows where all the money went last year, and broke down to, kind of, what companies and where it was going. And you can see there's a DPF company we've been working with lately that really has saved us money because they're recoring our DPF filters. So every time we have a DPF filter go down, it's, $3,000 to $5,000 to replace one.
Wow.
So sometimes we do have to replace them, but not as much now because we're working with this company and they record them for us. So, and they do it in a timely manner. They've been a godsend, really.
Yeah.
We spent $16,688 with DPF Alternatives is their name, and that's like 2 DPF filters.
You want to go ahead and share that?
Buy 2 new
Yeah,
ones.
That'd be great.
So,
So we have 8 potential buses coming, right?
yes.
What, are we still waiting for last year's order or last?
Weather tree.
The order that we put in late last spring are 5 Bluebirds. They're already coming in up there, so they'll be coming to us within a month or so.
Okay.
Maybe less.
Okay,
But we're still waiting on 3 Thomas buses from the spring of 2023 order.
okay. So that's the one that we're still waiting on is the 3
Yeah, that's the one
tons.
that came in the other day and we had to send it right back.
Right. So the ones that we just ordered last spring from Bluebird will be here
Yes.
this spring. So we're
They're
not,
coming on the lot up there right now. So
They're on schedule.
okay, good,
On a really good schedule.
right?
compared to what we've had.
And so what is our replacement for this coming year? Then how many will be ordering?
As many as we can, but it's probably going to end up being 5 if we can.
Okay.
Usually we can do 5.
Yeah, because our budget has decreased.
Yeah.
Is that due to the value of the fleet, like we talked about before? So the budget not necessarily decreasing because of students as much as,
Well, I think if you look, the bus replacement money is actually increasing for next year. And so that is based upon the value of the fleet.
okay,
The value of the fleet also factors into A as well, which is down significantly. You hear transportation folks talk about receiving reimbursement, the 90%.
right,
So the best that I can understand it, and Jeb can add information, what they do is the transportation department basically certifies payment for things like parts, diesel, that type of thing. The state collects that information.
right,
They're 2 years behind.
right,
So they're looking at what was spent 2 years ago by the transportation department. And then we're a medium density county as far as population goes.
right.
So our rate is at 90%. So the best I can figure is they take your expenditures and they set your step 4A here based upon that 90% of what was spent in that particular year.
Is that typical be a couple of years behind?
Yeah, that's just the way that it works.
Gotcha.
So, and the value of the fleet plays in there. So yeah, it's important that we
Replace those.
get these buses in.
Yeah, I don't, remember I was really pushing to go ahead and buy those 2 stock buses, if you remember.
Right,
And that was
Yeah.
kind of one of the main reasons, because I knew that we were really going to take a hit if we didn't continue pulling as many new buses in as we could. And then I think, and it's not gonna save us, but it's really gonna help us from the bottom dropping out.
Right.
Uh,
Plus your parts and tires and whatever else, so expenses will decrease if you've got new buses.
Yeah,
On the road.
and the maintenance costs go down.
Right.
It costs a whole lot extra to get the backup cameras and the other safety stuff on it.
It's a little extra, but I think it's worth it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's not gonna break us. You know,
I
having
figured one
stuff
of
on
Kenny's
it.
friends still be alive if we had that.
Okay, let's move on to page 13. Back in our original packet. So now the one thing you'll notice that we looked at the big ticket items as it goes to parts and things like that, but what we didn't look at is personnel cost. And personnel costs are not paid with step 4. Those are paid with the service personnel allowance and the professional personnel allowance that we receive in step 1 and step 2. And so the transportation department is divided up into there's 2 sets of accounts that they operate out of. On page 13, you'll see the first set of accounts. It's called the operation accounts. You can see I've got the word operation underlined on that page 13. And this is going to show you just the operations and then how much goes in there. And you can see that this includes the office staff salaries and mechanic salaries. And then you also have Jeb, is the bus drivers included in here?
The bus drivers are in here, the mechanics are in the second set.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Mechanics.
And then it goes over some of the information that we were looking at as far as parts, tires, all that. We wanted to break that out separately because sometimes these reports are hard to read, but this includes the personnel cost as well. And then there's a lot of benefits related costs with it. So that report is 9 pages long, goes through page 21. And then on page 22, you're going to see the second account that they operate out of, the service and maintenance account. So this is the one that includes the mechanics, the dental insurance, the retirement, everything associated with it. There's also items like on page 27, you see your fuel and diesel, but again, we looked at those more specifically broken out in those first set of documents that we looked at. Okay, so bottom line, if you go to page 30, here are your 2 accounts that are listed with the function codes 711 and 731. That's operations and service and maintenance. You see the budget for those accounts. Jeb subtracted out the FY '24 carryover for bus purchases. Those are those buses that we did not receive
Right.
that were still encumbered, so he subtracted that out. And you'll see that the budget is at 2.636. And our allowance for bus transportation in step 4 was at 2.678. So you can see it's pretty remarkably close to what's needed to operate. Of course, a big part of the operational cost is the personnel cost associated with it, and that's not included in this. Bill, did you all have anything else, or?
That's an amazing question.
I know personnel costs, we've talked about maybe looking at some kind of software or some kind of consultant to maybe look at our routes to see if there's any way to combine or make them more efficient. I don't know if that's still out there or if we've talked to anyone yet or.
Yeah, I'm talking to a company called Transponder that we've been working with for the last few years.
What's the name of it again, Bill?
Transponder, software company. They sent us a scope of work the other day on possibly doing what you're talking about. We can look deeper into that. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how much it'll help us, but just being honest, I don't know if it'll save us routes. But it's worth looking into.
Right.
Is that with inventory or just everything in general?
Just routing.
Right,
Routing,
okay.
yeah.
Because you probably got a pretty good handle on inventory now, don't you?
Yeah, we're not, and that's another, it's a small piece of that puzzle, but we're not keeping parts like we did before. So we're purchasing parts constantly.
It's all kind of computerized and you can go back and check it and make sure that
Right.
it comes off, goes back on. And
We're working that inventory. I won't sit here and try to act like it's perfect, but it's pretty good. From where we were at, we got a good idea.
Here we are at.
We got a pretty good idea of what.
When I first come on the.
We
board,
hope
that's
so.
where we were at, you know.
And we know so.
It's good.
Can I say something about transponders? please?
Sure.
One thing about transponders, what we've discussed is that seems to be, it might work in town where you got block to block to block. Where out here, and people don't understand, they'll say, well, why do we have 4 buses going on the same road? They don't understand that this bus has to go up that road to get to this road, to get to that road. So you've got all these buses on the same road, well, Transponder's not gonna look at that either. Transponder's only gonna say, see, you've got 4 buses going onto this road, and they don't understand that they've got all these children that they have to pick up.
Right, the geography.
And the timing,
Right.
how long it takes. You all know that we can only have students on the bus for so long. The timing that it would take for one bus to do all of these roads
Right.
and get back to school, Transponder's not gonna see that.
Would you be better off having Joe work with you all to try to figure out
It's,
A what?
I mean,
Joe's
with
kind
your
of
experience
stretched.
and his ability with digital things, I think it couldn't hurt.
right. It's possible.
But I think y'all do a good job. I'm not,
No, we're just looking for ways to pinch pennies,
I grew up in this county, rode a bus. I know what it's like.
We talk about bus runs. I know there's so many parents now take their kids. I mean, all we got to do is drive by a school and see that.
Yeah.
What is the average, if there is such a thing, on particular runs? I mean, is there a way that you can look at that and say, we got a bus going to, just pull one out of the hat, Pritchard Elementary that's only got 3 kids on it? Is there a way that a bus that comes down that road later on could pick those 3 kids up and take them to Pritchard Elementary and consolidate a route.
I think they mentioned something a while ago, though. We're limited by law on how long a kid can be on a bus.
Right, but
I
they're,
didn't know that.
that's not what I'm talking about. You understand?
If we recognize a situation like that, yeah, we would address that.
Is there-
I don't know that we have, we do have some buses that have 7, 10, 12 kids. But these are buses that are far out, that have to go, to the furthest ends of the county to get kids. So some of those buses do have, they're light on load.
Right.
We have to purchase, small buses other than special, like we have like three buses, I believe, that are 54 passenger buses, but they're not special needs buses because of the route that they're on, so they gotta be small. But yeah, I mean, we look at our numbers regularly.
That's what I was going to say. Do you have a number, I guess, of bus 7849 has 10 kids that ride it every day. And a certain other bus might have 15 or 30 or whatever the number is.
Right.
You do have that where you can look to it and,
I think we have a grasp on our routes and numbers well enough that when we look, if something like that was to rear its head, I think we would be able to address that. I'm not saying we don't. So what we look at our numbers, every year the drivers have to turn in the numbers, number of students that they haul. And then we put that in the system. In fact, today I actually submitted our ridership numbers to the State Department because they do that in January. And then in the summer, we end up submitting the rest of our numbers, which is fleet and fleet data, and there's something else of them. But this back to TransFinder and what Kay was getting at. TransFinder you have to geocode all the stops. So and you also have to have GPS in certain areas to pick all those stops up. And all that has to be accurate in weeks. So I'm not saying it can't be done, but I don't know that with what we would put into it, I don't know that it would save us anything because it may have, it's like you hit the button and say, whatever the button is that shows, once you put your info in, it shows you a better route. It's going to, like Kay was saying, like urban areas, it works well, even suburban areas. But when you get into rural areas where you have, Davis Branch ends in a gravel road and ends up going over to Little Hurricane or whatever it may be, and they connect, it's going to show you to send a bus over there because
Right.
that's more efficient. So we could work through things like that with TransFinder, but I don't.
Is
But as far
it
as like
worth?
numbers,
Across the top.
I mean, we look at our numbers regularly. We have to consider the time on the bus. So if we do combine a route, which we've done in the past.
I think that's exactly what I was asking, Bill,
Yeah.
just in a different way, maybe. The shortest run with the least number of, let's just say it takes, and this is just hypothetical, whatever, 15 minutes to complete my run in the morning, and I've got 10 kids. Let's just say, for instance, I'm going from, we'll just throw north of Fort Gay, 10 minutes to get to Fort Gay. All I take is kids to Fort Gay, and there's 10 of them, and then I go home for my runs.
Instead of make 2 runs on day.
Is there a way that you all know that is what I'm saying?
Yes,
So you do have those numbers.
they turn those in. We know each route, everywhere they go.
And the duration of the route.
They turn in,
Duration.
one of the forms that they have to turn in at the beginning of the year is how many students they have on the bus, and the exact time that they pick those students up, and what time they drop them off at school, then what time they drop them off at home in the afternoon.
So what would be the shortest run we've got in the county? Any idea?
I'd say,
Spring
I'm
Valley
guessing
area.
an hour. Most runs are an hour and a half. If you get beyond an hour and a half, you go long run. And we have a couple that are really long, like one an hour and 45 or whatever.
Right.
But I don't know that we have very many less than, let's say, hour and 45 minutes, if any.
Spring Valley area. If you get in the Spring Valley area, they're shorter,
Sure.
but your
More
buses are
kids.
longer.
Full.
They're loaded down,
Right.
yeah. So we do have, like, I can think of Well, we have a halftime evening run down there that literally takes the Playmates over to Westmoreland and then goes back. We added, when we bid that run, we recognized that bus could help in another way. So when we rebid that run, we added the high school to it. We added to, so when we get opportunities to do those types of things,
Sure.
we stand on it because we can restructure it any way we want when we rebid it.
Right.
But if I adjust one that somebody's already on, I can only adjust it 15 minutes. So if I add 15 minutes on each end, so it ends up being a total of 30 on the driver. But so let's say we did recognize a bus has 10 kids on it, and we got this bus over here that has 5, and we combine those runs. If that puts more than 15 minutes on that driver, what we've added, I can't do it.
I didn't realize we had those constraints.
So those are some of the constraints we're dealing with. And then also you're looking at time on bus. So we've got to look at all that together. So when we do rebid a route, we jump on it if we can make those adjustments we do.
And how long can they be on a bus?
So when you're talking about elementary's 30 minutes, middle school's 45, and high school's an hour. And then if you have a consolidation
Yeah.
or a closure, then that can bump up 15 minutes for each. So
Okay.
you have
I just
45
I was
for an
curious.
hour.
And I'm curious.
And then there's some routes that are on waivers, correct? Because they were in existence when those rules came into
Oh, okay.
place.
Because they
Some
grandfather.
routes we just don't, and honestly, we have a lot of kids on the bus too long. I turn in those numbers every year to the State Department. They ask for them. And for instance, this year, I believe we had like 95 elementary kids on the bus too long. In the years past, we went from 70 some to 90. So it fluctuates a little bit. We have very few high school kids on there too long because the hour
Yeah.
they get,
Yeah.
they got a little time to be on there.
Three
So,
high schools. So.
but we do have high school kids on too long. We've got elementary on too long.
I was on too long. I remember.
Are those state law or state board policy?
As far as I know, it's
State law.
Because, there's difference. We know that there's a difference in a state board policy and a state law. So
I can understand that.
We have pushed the limits on that 15 minutes on drivers. So when we've done that when we can. It's hard to really push over that because they get back and say you can't do.
would it be possible to ask to find the section, the code and stuff? I'd like to take a look at that because I'd like to be able to see if we can get something changed a little bit through the legislature.
I'm just curious. How many full buses do you have? Full? Very many?
We got a lot.
Really?
Yeah, we got a lot, especially down in Westmoreland and the Sarita Cano area.
Mhm.
They're packed. We got a few Buffalo buses that are packed.
Especially in the evening, I think, the morning, maybe not as much.
Oh, where they drop
Yeah.
them off and then okay, yeah.
They ride
'Cause,
the
you
bus
see
home.
so many dropping their kids off. Then you see so many in high school driving that you wonder how they fill the buses up,
So we're hauling 35, well, if our numbers are right, we're hauling 3,500 kids out of 5,900 or something.
Right.
Somewhere around
Right in there.
Yeah.
So we're
Over half.
We're right at 59%.
I was just curious.
Uh,
I just want to know.
But even though we're losing kids, we're still having to get out there.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why it's hard for us to cut back,
Right.
but we're still having to
Because
go
the-
get them and get them to school in a timely manner.
Where we
Our
are.
geography is a
Yes.
Where we
is a
live.
hindrance to us.
Absolutely.
So,
Another big thing that people don't seem to realize is that when we say we have a 90-passenger bus, that bus does not hold 90 kids unless they're pre-Ks.
yeah.
Exactly.
Three in a seat,
Three,
sitting
yeah.
on top. Right.
And there's no kids these days that can sit through this.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially big old buses.
Right.
So,
Hey, thank you all.
Thank you.
Sure, anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
This evening, we had, one of our previous meetings, we talked about the properties that we have that we're no longer using for school purposes. And so I've reached out to some municipalities and to Playmates down in the Westmoreland area about those properties at Westmoreland. We talked about properties at Fort Gay and Buffalo. We haven't received any offers. I think we do have an offer that's coming in from Playmates for the Westmoreland property that I'll be able to share with you before our next regular board meeting. But I'm going to reach back out to the organizations just to make sure that there's not any interest in those properties.
Did you reach out to the city of Huntington on that Westmoreland property?
Yes.
Okay, because I talked to the councilman the other day in the Westmoreland area, and they were interested according to what. We've had a new administration change and stuff over the
Yeah.
holidays.
Yeah.
And he just.
I talked to a couple of different city councilmen. Who did you talk to?
Jason Arthur.
Yeah, that's who I talked to.
Did he express the interest to you that he did to me?
He was a little bit concerned because he wasn't in office yet, but that's changed now.
Right.
You know, he should be in. So I'll follow up with him to see if there's any possibility there.
Did you talk to Dave Pennington?
And then there's been changes at Fort Gay too, so I need to follow up
Right.
there.
Sure.
We'll follow up there. Yes, I did talk to Dave.
Sorry.
I did talk to Dave at length about the Buffalo property, but he understood, you know, once I explained, you know, what we're dealing with the numbers and things like that. He understood why we were looking at it.
That's probably the most utilized property we have of the local kids and community.
Yeah, and I'll follow up with him again as well.
You're just
He-
from Buffalo.
He mentioned that they would be able to possibly help with some utilities, that there's no way they could take over the property, but they might be able to do some utility help, that type of thing.
Maintenance would be nice. They could just check in there.
All right, that's all I have.
Okay. All right. Board directives or board reports? We have none this evening. No unfinished business, so we can move on to new business and consent action items. Superintendent recommends approval of the following action items. Additional items received prior to the time of the meeting may be added. Discussion and or separate action of items may be requested by members of the board and or the superintendent. Items are subject to change. Any blanks will be filled in prior to the meeting. In the event a nominee withdraws, we reserve the right to put the next candidate in that position. Number 1 is consider for approval the recommended personnel matters, pages 1 through 4. And I believe we have a
I make
slightly
a motion
revised,
to
Yeah,
approve
there's-
as revised.
as revised.
Yes.
Well, Johnita made the motion, Mark made the second.
There's a couple things I need to.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a,
Where we
And
got?
so the revision was on the third page, and it really
I know.
they
Hour.
they just forgot the word hour under Wendy Little for 8-hour cafeteria manager. On page 2, there is a suspension item. Superintendent recommends the administrative leave of a service employee without pay from December 9th to December 31st. The letter associated with that action is in page 34 of your packet. So I'll give you a second to look at that. And again, the board has, or the employee has the right to request a hearing anytime you have an action without pay. And this letter notified them of that right to request a hearing. They did not request a hearing.
Okay.
And so the employee that action item is associated with is Joetta Hatfield. And then her resignation is also on your agenda.
Okay. Thank you, Todd.
And I believe that's all I needed to go over.
any other questions, concerns regarding personnel? As revised? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Randy's still with us.
Motion carries 5-0.
I
Number
don't leave you, Johnny.
Okay.
Number 2, consider for approval the purchase requisition order and quotes in excess of $5,000, pages 5 through 7. Randy made the motion.
I'll second it.
Dennis made the second. Questions, concerns?
What are we painting at Wayne Elementary?
We painted the hallways.
Okay.
Done.
Hallways, cafeteria, stairwells. And then on page 7, there's the PO there for the virtual students. And that's our agreement that you approved with Kanawha County Schools back in August. And again, this substantially reduces our cost for these services that
Right.
we've paid in the past. This is for one semester, so there will be a payment that comes second semester that will mirror this. But I think our cost last year was around $180,000 for the year.
I do have a question, and I think I asked this maybe once before, but if I understand correctly, Tony Clay is in charge of the virtual school, or you put him over the virtual school as like is that correct?
Yeah, Kim and Tony both picked up extra duties. Kim is doing the alternative school. Yeah, Tony's doing work with the virtual.
So does he have access to the curriculum and is he capable, or someone capable of signing on to that virtual classroom and just sit in on class delivery?
I doubt it because it's coming through Kanawha County Schools, and Kanawha County Schools monitors that. But I can follow up and get some more information for you.
We
Appreciate-
share, I'll chime in, we share a student, and he and I talk kind of frequently. And I know him and the lady from Kanawha County communicate on a daily basis almost about what's going on with grades and things that are going on in class. So,
Right, but I think my concern is that we have someone in Wayne County that would have access to be able to sit in on it if so chosen to do.
We'll bring him in at one of the upcoming meetings, one of the next 2 regular meetings, and have him update us on the activities and how it's going.
Sir, are we looking at what curriculum that they are offering?
Yes,
It's-
and it just kind of the delivery of it,
Right.
make sure everything's cool.
Right.
Up to snuff.
Everything is
Up to snuff.
delivered as we would do it
Yeah,
here.
51.
That- I think.
Yeah, pretty much.
And we have 51 students in there, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Excellent. All right. Any other questions or concerns on those purchase requisitions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. New business, separate action, consider for approval the out-of-state travel request. Travel employees to travel to Atlanta, Georgia on January 17th through the 21st. It's funded by the West Virginia Department of Education.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Dennis.
One second.
Second by Jonita. Any questions or concerns on that travel?
This is for the
Our
this is
teachers,
for the Ohio State Notre Dame game Monday evening, and it's part of the recognition that the state teachers of the year are receiving. So all the state teachers of the year had an opportunity to go to that game. So Ms.
Wow.
Cole will be going down there, and it's paid for by the Department of Education through their West Virginia teachers.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It's a good activity.
That's good. Neither one of them is my favorite team though.
Notre Dame.
I guess her duties retired as of 1st of January. She's done with all the extracurricular. Miss Cole.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, this will be the last
final.
one.
This
is their last
and,
hurrah, huh?
their spouse gets to go with them as well.
Oh,
it's,
Yeah.
wow.
So yeah, it's a good family event.
well, good.
I remember those days. They was really
Fun, right?
Yes.
All right. Any other questions or concerns on that travel? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
And the other thing I wanted to mention at the back of your packets on page 35, 36, and 37, there's a conference next week that's focused on, it's the International Conference on Autism, Intellectual Disability, and Developmental Disability. And we're sending some folks using Fort Gaze title funds. And then Jill Parsons will be paid for through county funds, title funds, to participate in that conference. This came in during Christmas break, and I had some questions, and by the time I got it, I didn't have time to get it into the agenda. But I wanted to bring it to your attention since it's next week that we're going to authorize these people to go ahead and go to make sure nobody had any concerns before we move forward.
Okay.
I would like to have
Get her-
them as a spotlight once they
Yes.
come back.
Yeah, because that's what we used to do when
Right.
they went on a trip. We'd have them come back and give us a little presentation to
Right.
see what they learned.
That would be one I would be interested in.
Be a good idea.
All
We
right.
want Sharon to come back too and tell us about that ball game.
Right.
Just kidding. No.
Potential items? Anything?
Probably be
anyone?
some riffs or budget and all that, won't they?
Yeah, we're starting, based upon those preliminary comp numbers. Of course, we have to do this every year.
I know.
We have to go through and figure out what cuts we're going to have to make. So you saw the dollar amounts that were in the preliminary comps associated with the amount of funding we're going to lose in the professional personnel. I think it was what, Chip, 311,000, something like that.
Right.
And then service is actually up, but we're gonna have to add a number of positions. So we'll calculate that, identify a number of positions that we need to cut. We need to go deeper than that because we need to get those numbers over formula down. And then we'll be bringing recommendations to you, updating you more in February, and then
Well, now, when do they have, when's the incentive up? Is it
March.
March or January?
March something, isn't it?
March, to see how many people we're gonna have retired. I mean, some people go ahead and retire and some of them because they want that incentive.
I think it's March 1st.
Okay, that's what I thought too. So that'll give us an idea too.
That should help, shouldn't it?
Don't cheat me out.
I hate that part of this job worse than anything.
Retirement?
Having to cut people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's never
We
fun.
need them,
Okay.
and yet we're forced to cut them because it's not funded properly.
Okay.
Have you heard anything more, Mark, on changing the school aid formula?
They're just in discussion. I mean, they're not, the legislature doesn't go into session this year. It'll-
February.
February.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think. There was,
Well, this governor, from what I read in the paper, is getting ready to use an axe on everything. You think he's gonna go for that?
I don't know.
Don't sound very good for public schools to me.
And I think there's some budget challenges the state's going to be dealing with as well. So it's
Yeah.
going to be interesting times.
All right.
Okay. I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Johnny, second by Mark.
We
All in
got this,
favor?
Mark.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. It is 7:33.
Be careful walking through the house, Brandy.
Sure would help us.
Okay, those folks online, thank you for joining us.
Woo-hoo. Catching on